3 simple words changed my life forever. You have cancer. In an instant, I went from a 13-year-old kid doing normal things, worrying about normal stuff like boys and cheerleading and basketball, to fighting for my life. I felt like I turned 40 overnight. The next several months were an absolute whirlwind with surgery, chemo, radiation, pills, puking, living that 13-year-old dream, right? It was tough, but we just put one foot in front of the other, had an amazing support system in my family, friends, and in my entire community, moving towards that day where people would stop freaking out and worrying about me, number one. They would also let me go back to being a normal 13-year-old kid, because that's really all I ever wanted. I didn't feel like any of my friends understood me. I just kind of felt alone. And that day finally came, and let me just tell you, I was elated to be cancer-free. I was done, right? You check the box, you're done with cancer? Not so much. I went back to my normal life with my friends and doing those normal things. And then I just realized, why am I not like them anymore? Why are they worrying about things that don't matter? Like, why are they worrying about having a bad hair day? I just wanted to scream, at least you have hair. I just still didn't understand why I was cancer-free, but I wasn't free at all. And then one day, this man named Danny Cavett came into my life and invited me to go to a free camp called Camp Cavett, where other kids like me would be. So I took a leap of faith and said, why not? I went to camp, and the second I stepped onto that campground, my life changed again forever. I saw kids that had stories like mine. I started to realize that people kind of understood what I was talking about. They get it. I wasn't alone anymore. The next 10 years kind of flew by. I was a camper again, became a volunteer at camp, came to OU, majored in pre-med, because of course I was going to help kids with cancer, right? Had a meltdown my junior year, didn't really think that was probably the best idea with the emotional side of that. Changed my major, graduated without a hot clue what I wanted to do with my life. Moved home for a little bit, hung out, did an internship, still confused. And then a curveball. My dad is diagnosed with cancer, completely unrelated to mine. So hand in hand, we walked again in the same journey. And the second that he was declared cancer-free, I bought a plane ticket to Spain. I had no idea still what I wanted to do with my life, so why not try to go figure it out in Spanish, right? So 3 weeks later, off I go to Europe to study Spanish, right? And ultimately find myself. And just as fate would have it, 1 month before I was supposed to come home, I get an email from Danny Cavett asking me to come work for that very foundation that helped me, Cavett Kids. It was all starting to make sense. So for the past 8 years, I have had the ultimate blessing of working for Cavett Kids and getting to relate to kids that were like me. I get to teach them things about character and about coping and connection, and ultimately give them some hope and say, you can do this. I am so incredibly humbled and blessed to be able to give back to this place, this organization that showed me a place where illness does not define the child. So I'm standing up here today because, sure, I am a cancer survivor, but that is not what this is about. I'm just an ordinary, normal person that was blessed by something that burdens so many people. I'm here to tell you about the awesome stories and these lessons that I've learned from these ordinary kids that are battling these extraordinary medical problems. I'm here to tell you about the journey, about how cancer, ultimately when I was lost, it was what brought me home. It's crazy that sometimes we wait for these traumatic, life-threatening situations to happen for us to just have a little change of how we view life. Well, good news, it's your lucky day. You don't need to have cancer to figure that out, and that's why I'm here. I am thankful, so thankful that I had cancer, because honestly, it has given me so many blessings in my life, and I want you to understand 3 of those blessings today. Cancer changed and gave me a new understanding of 3 simple words: perspective, normal, and purpose. Before when I had cancer and I was pretty much hadn't been to camp yet, I kind of turned into a little bit of a self-centered little, 13-year-old bratty kid. I was so offended when someone looked at me and said, "You have the good kind of cancer." I mean, is there one of those? I really didn't think there was. I just didn't see that big picture. I did learn how to embrace what I was going through and enjoy the struggle, I guess, if you will. I didn't want my parents to worry about me anymore, and I wanted to kind of, I guess, carry the weight of that on my shoulders so that they didn't get sad or worry. So I learned how to laugh about it. Like whenever it was Halloween time, and I decided, why not be an alien? I mean, I'm bald, so painted my head with green latex paint, my arms, won that competition. Yeah, costume contest, check. I also waxed my head when it came off because it was very sticky, not a hair left on my little head once I was done with that. You know, but ultimately I became kind of one of those cancer brats, as we call them in my world. I was pretty vocal about the things I wanted, and as a sick kid, you kind of get what you want. And so I wanted a puppy and a laptop. Thanks to Mom and Dad, I got a puppy and a laptop. Because that's what you do, you get what you want when you're sick. It was all about me. And then I went to camp and I realized a new perspective on this world. There were kids there without legs, in chairs that had to sit while others stood up. There were kids that had treatment for years. There were kids that weren't gonna make it. And all of a sudden, I felt like I had a cold compared to those kids. My 4 months worth of treatment was nothing compared to what these kids face daily. And suddenly, I was thankful for what I had. I would choose that kind anytime. I was saying, oh yeah, no, I'm good without that. No, you keep that, I'll keep my cancer, I'm good. It just changed my perspective on my disease. And that's what my job does. It gives me pretty much a 24/7 perspective check on keeping a positive perspective in life. Like when I go to camp as a volunteer and this kid, Jamie, says, meet me at the ropes course. And I show up, and he's an amputee, so from the knee down, he doesn't have a leg. And he also, it's because of his cancer. And he said, I'm gonna do that ropes course. I said, all right, what's the surprise? He said, I'm gonna do it with my leg off, and I'm gonna do it blindfolded. And I watched this kid take off his prosthetic leg, strap on a blindfold, and climb to the top of a 40-foot tall ropes course that would be tough for anyone in this room. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. It took him a while, and I actually asked him to come down at one point. I was like, you've proven your point. It's okay. No. So when he jumped off that platform in the end and did the zip line, I thought to myself, what was I complaining about? And you know, these kids, as adults, we want to teach kids lessons, right? That's why we get involved in causes and why we volunteer, because they've got to learn from us. That's not the case. I'm the one learning every single day with these kids. I want you to meet a kid named Fletcher, 10 years old, Ewing sarcoma as well. Funny, witty, yeah, that's the skyline of New York on his head. He liked to paint his head. And I want you to meet his buddy, Scrap. You know, the guy from Ice Age, you know, the obsessive, compulsive, ratty, squirrel-looking thing that will not give up on that dang acorn at all, ever. Well, I took Fletcher to see that movie, Ice Age 2, The Meltdown. And when Scrap comes on, I start thinking to myself, oh my God, here he goes again. Like, give it up, dude. Isn't there another acorn on this earth that you could go and find? Let it go. And Fletcher says, right after I finished my thought, I love that guy. He has so much hope. What a different perspective on that guy. Just keeps me in check and made me realize that I struggle with that still too. I'm standing here telling you to keep a positive perspective, and still I need that perspective check. And so someday, maybe if you could look at something in your life that's a struggle, that's a battle, and turn it around and embrace it, maybe eventually one day, hope will become your new normal. You know, define that word. What is normal to you? This is a funny word to me. What's normal? Are you a college student? Do you own a business? Are you tall? Are you short? Are you happy? Are you scattered? Are you organized? What's your normal? You know, I used to look at that word so differently. And now, after camp, I realize that your perception of normal changes the way that you treat and view other people. Honestly, it does. I know diseases are hard to swallow and they're really tough to understand, especially if you've never had one. And if somebody looks different than you, totally different than you, then you really sometimes don't know how to act around them, right? I used to be so embarrassed because I have a 7-inch scar across my stomach, and I didn't want to show it to anybody because I just wanted to blend in and be normal. Well, all of a sudden, I go to camp and I realize that scar comparing competitions are legit. And it's actually really freaking cool. You get some serious street cred at camp if you can win one of those scar comparing competitions. I have never come out on top, by the way. A 7-inch scar is nothing compared to what I see there. But it taught me to embrace my scars and look at them as something super cool, right? It taught me to realize that the people asking me in an awkward way and making me feel weird, those people, they don't know. They don't get it. And that's beautiful, right? That their normal is a life without scars. I think that's a beautiful thing. So now, whenever people ask me awkwardly, I just give myself a little silent, bless their heart. And then I just make up a story about what happened, and I tell them I got attacked by a one-toothed shark, or that a pirate captured me off a cruise ship and slashed my stomach. You gotta break the ice, right? I've learned to laugh about it. That's all you can do is laugh. And nobody taught me better to laugh than this child, Holly. Holly went to ski camp with us, and honestly, she has to wear this blind skier vest, let me tell you. She can drive a car, but she has to wear blind skier when she's up on the mountain. And so this lady's on the mountain, she does this complete and total yard sale, is what she calls it. She wipes out, ski over there, pole over there, and she can't seem to get her skis back on. So Holly says, I'm gonna go help her. So she skis over to this lady and she says, you know, if you'll turn your skis sideways, you'll be able to actually get them on a little easier. The lady says, how'd you know that? Blind skier. So clever Holly takes advantage and says, well, you know, if I listen really closely, I can hear which way the snow is crunching, and I know your next move. Pretty interesting take on that, right? So it's this sense of normal that honestly, it brings out the best in these kids. And I never ever realized how you can lose yourself in an illness when you're around people that are like you. And Eric is a kid that came to camp with us for the first time and woke up at 4 a.m. because I got a call from his mom saying, the transplant center called. There's a kidney waiting on Eric. He's got to get back. He's got to come back. He's a little 8-year-old kid. So I jump out of bed and I'm running. I'm going to go tell him the good news, right? Well, they're unhooking him from dialysis, and I say, Eric, come on, let's go. We got to get back to Oklahoma City. His response, can't I just wait till everybody wakes up in the morning till I get my kidney? I said, I don't think that's how this whole thing works. No, let's go, come on, buddy. And he's like, but today, it's the train ride. He honestly would have chosen to stay at camp instead of going to get a kidney that ultimately saved his life because he felt like a kid. He just forgot he was sick, laying in bed, hooked up to dialysis. He forgot he was sick. That's powerful, right? This connection factor, it can totally change the way you act. And it does change the way these kids act at camp. They look normal, they feel normal, they're funny. Clifford, for example, he was giggling with his counselor and he said, last night while you were sleeping, I farted on your head. But you didn't know because your headphones were in. That's normal, because he's a normal kid. He might be fighting a brain tumor, but he's a normal kid. You know, and it's really one of the only places that you're gonna see or hear somebody scream, put your hair back on, or put your eye back in, or where this picture is normal. And where finding a leg in the lost and found is the status quo. You guys feel like that's normal? Because I do. That's my normal. And the faster we learn to embrace it, the faster we can live a bigger and better and fuller life. So honestly, it's this feeling of normal that helps us understand things like our purpose. You know, Holly didn't let that moment define her, right? Because she knew that that was out of her control. The way that that lady responded to her was out of her control. How many of you guys have ever had somebody respond to you in an awkward way? Don't let it define you, right? And that's how I feel about cancer. I didn't let it define me. I am thankful I had cancer, and I wouldn't change it for a heartbeat, because look at who I get to work with every day. I'm thankful. It didn't define me, but it sure refined who I am. And it made me look at things in a completely different way. You know, Danny Cavitt's dream, his dream of starting this foundation of Cavitt Kids, it gave my struggles and my battle in my life a purpose. It showed me that sometimes you have to go through horrible things and look backwards and say, oh, it all makes sense now. You know, it's taught me some invaluable lessons about things. A lot of those things are all about little things that we pass by every day and we don't stop and realize the purpose of them. Like, did you guys know that there's more than one purpose for a loofah? It's not to wash your body only. Fletcher taught me that. Fletcher used to always say, I want to sit in a bathtub full of peach loofahs. Yeah, you heard me right. A full bathtub, and the loofahs must be peach. For whatever reason, I don't know. He was a quirky little kid. When we got the news that Fletcher wasn't going to make it, we just sprung into action, and it was time. We've got to make his dream come true. So we started Project Loofah. And within 2 weeks, over 1,000 loofahs were collected from all across the country to fulfill his dream. When he walked in, shocked is definitely a word I would say. He was so excited. His frail little body climbed into that bathtub and submerged himself and closed his eyes. And I said, Fletcher, how's it feel? And he said, it feels like heaven. And that's where he went. Less than 4 weeks later, that's where he was. And I have no doubt in my mind that when he walked through those pearly gates, what do you think is waiting on him? A bathtub full of peach loofahs. You know, so that teaches us that I have to look at things and stop and take a moment and say, that's more than just an object. It meant heaven to him. You know, cancer's also taught me that survivor's guilt is real. It's not a joke. I have been to probably 70 funerals, and I'm 30 years old. And that's a tough pill to swallow when I'm the one living. And these kids that have so much left in their lives, they're the ones that are passing away. Boy, I questioned it for a long time, and it took me forever to ever come to terms with the fact that I was the one that was chosen to live. I asked why a lot. Why not me? Why them? Like, let me go instead. And then I realized so many times I've heard these kids say, I'm happy I had cancer. I'm thankful. I'm okay with what's next for me. I fought the good fight. I've finished the race. I've kept the faith. And no one taught me that more than Stevie. Stevie had cancer once, and then a different type of cancer as well. She was always saying, we believe. As you can see the bracelet, we believe. Team Stevie, we believe. And she never lost her faith, let me tell you. When they told her there's nothing left to do, she, in true bossy Stevie, courageous fashion, wanted to help plan her own funeral at the age of 15. What courage that takes. So when we walked into this funeral, over 1,000 people in a small town gym, I saw one of the most powerful things I've ever seen that reminds me about purpose. At the end, when they opened up her casket, I saw her sweet little face, a beautiful flower in her hair, and her delicate little curls. And I saw her, at her request, 3 large embroidered words on the inside lining of her casket. I still believe. But no matter what she had faced, what she was facing, and the fact that she knew she was not going to make it, the one message she wanted to relay to everyone was that she still believed. So how can I not? How can I not trust Stevie and know that her purpose on earth was to live till she was 15 and to spread that message? I know my purpose is not to choose people's fate. I've had to accept that I have no control over who lives and who dies. And that's a tough one to accept. But with kids like Stevie, if she was standing here today and I was sitting here saying, why? Why did she go? Why? I don't understand. She'd say, why not? And she'd say, live. Don't waste one more day. Do not take your life for granted. Live for me. So that's what I do. I live for these kids, and I push forward, and I realize that it's out of my control And when my time comes, I'm going to have a beautiful family in heaven welcoming me there. So we have to learn from Stevie and these kids and say to it, to inspire, you must be inspired. You can't just sit in your chair, come to these conferences and be a wallflower, be a victim, say, why is this happening to me? To inspire, you must be inspired. You have to turn your perspective around, change it. Look at it in a positive way. Your struggle, you will learn something from it if you embrace it. You have to be accepting of your normal. This is your normal. And be accepting of others. Don't judge them if they don't look like your normal. And then you also have to just live your purpose. You have a purpose of why you're here, and you've got one shot. One shot. If you don't define your battles in your life, they'll define you, and don't let that happen. When you look at a loofah, I want you to think of heaven. Look at an acorn, think of hope. And enjoy every second of the ride. Thank you.